This happened back in late October of 2022. I'm a 26-year-old guy, and at the time, I had just moved into a new apartment for work. It was a small town in upstate New York, pretty quiet and surrounded by thick woods. I didn't know anyone there, and I honestly didn't mind the solitude. I worked remotely, so most days I barely left my place except for groceries or walks. This particular night, it had been raining heavily all evening, the kind of rain that just didn't let up. It was one of those weird nights where the sky looked pitch black even at 6 p.m., and thunder kept rolling in every 20 minutes like it was trying to remind you that it was still around. The power had flickered twice already, but luckily it hadn't gone out completely. Not yet, anyway. I remember sitting on the couch with a blanket, scrolling through my phone and watching the rain beat against the big window in my living room. Around 9:45 p.m., I decided I should probably just get ready for bed. I was tired, and the rain was oddly relaxing. As I stood up and turned off the TV, I caught something out of the corner of my eye. There was a man standing just across the street. It was hard to see through the sheets of rain, but he was just standing there, totally still. No umbrella, no raincoat, just standing in the downpour, facing my building. I stood by the window for a second, kind of stunned, trying to make out more. But the lightning flashed, and in that second of brightness, I saw that his face looked wrong. I don't know how else to say it. His eyes looked hollow, and his mouth was slightly open like he was mid-sentence, but just frozen. Then the power went out. Just like that. The whole apartment dropped into silence and darkness, except for the storm outside. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight, feeling this tight knot start forming in my chest. I peeked back out the window again, but he was gone. I tried telling myself that maybe it was just a weird guy passing by or someone waiting for a ride, but that didn't explain how fast he disappeared. I didn't see any cars, and I didn't hear footsteps. I locked all the doors, checked every window, then finally went to bed with my phone under my pillow. I didn't sleep well, and at one point, I thought I heard faint footsteps in the hallway outside my apartment. But again, I told myself it was just the rain messing with my ears. I woke up around 3:20 a.m. to what I can only describe as a scratching noise. It was soft at first, like something brushing against the outside of the building. I tried to ignore it, pulling the covers tighter around me, but it didn't stop. It actually started getting louder, like nails dragging along the siding of the house, right under my bedroom window. I sat up, grabbed my phone, and turned on the flashlight again. My heart was pounding as I walked over to the window and slowly pulled the curtain aside. There was a hand pressed against the glass. Just a hand, pale, soaking wet. Long, thin fingers splayed out like it had been there a while. And the worst part was, it was on the second floor. I jumped back and stumbled over the nightstand. I didn't even scream. I couldn't. I just started backing out of the room and into the hallway. That's when I heard the sound of my front door creaking open. I froze. Every instinct in my body told me not to go look, but I knew I had locked it earlier. Deadbolt and everything. I didn't know what else to do, so I tiptoed forward, holding my phone out like that tiny light could protect me from whatever was down there. The front door was wide open. Rain was blowing in. There were muddy footprints on the wooden floor. Barefoot. Human. I stood there for what felt like minutes, just listening. No footsteps, no breathing. Just the storm, and my heart pounding so hard it made my ears ring. Suddenly, I heard movement in the kitchen. Not fast, just shifting. Like someone turning their weight from one foot to another. I ran back upstairs and locked myself in the bathroom. I didn't even call the cops at first. I was just trying to stay quiet, listening through the walls. I finally got enough courage to whisper into the phone and call 911. The operator told me to stay put, and that a patrol was nearby. It felt like forever, but eventually, I heard a knock at the front door. A real one this time, and the police calling out. I came downstairs slowly, still shaking, and let them in. They searched the entire apartment. No one was there. Nothing was broken. No signs of forced entry, just those wet footprints, which had stopped at the foot of the stairs. They were gone. They took a report and said they'd drive by a few times that week just in case. But I never saw that man again. I don't know how he got in. I don't know how he got up to my window. And I don't know why he chose my apartment. But I still live here, and every time it rains hard at night, I can't help but check the window, just to make sure there's no one. It was supposed to be a relaxing weekend, just me and my older brother, camping up in northern Vermont. I'm going to call him Sam. We hadn't done anything like this in years, and with how hectic life had been lately, we figured it was time to get away from everything. No phones, no noise, no people. We picked a trail that wasn't too far off grid, but far enough that we knew we wouldn't run into anyone else. We arrived Friday afternoon. The trailhead was hidden down a small gravel road behind a bunch of old logging property. No cell reception, not even one bar. That's how remote this was. It took about 5 miles of hiking to get to the camping spot, a wide clearing surrounded by forest with a shallow river running nearby. It was actually beautiful, silent. The kind of quiet you forget exists. We spent the first few hours setting up camp, gathering firewood, and boiling water from the river to drink. Around 6 or 7 p.m., the sky started getting darker, way earlier than expected. We figured it was just clouds, but the temperature dropped really fast too. By the time we got the fire going, light rain had already started falling. We ducked into the tent for a while, played cards, and waited it out. That's when we first heard it, a faint sound in the distance, like someone coughing. It came from the woods just past the river. I froze mid-sentence and looked at Sam. He heard it too. We both sat still, listening. At first, I thought maybe it was an animal, but then we heard a branch snap, then another cough. We quietly unzipped the tent and peeked out. It was getting dark now, and the rain was falling harder. The forest beyond the river was barely visible, but we could tell something was out there, or someone. We decided to stay quiet and listen a while longer. About 10 minutes later, we heard another noise, this time from the opposite direction, deeper in the woods behind our tent. It sounded like slow footsteps, crunching leaves and twigs underfoot. Sam whispered, "Someone's walking around out there." Now, it's important to say, there were no other campsites nearby. We were completely alone, or we should have been. We sat in the tent for nearly an hour, just listening. Occasionally we'd hear more steps, sometimes from one direction, sometimes another, but we never saw anyone. Eventually, the rain got heavier. The footsteps stopped, and after a while, we tried to calm ourselves down and pretend maybe it was just wildlife. By around 11 p.m., we both agreed to call it a night. Sam dozed off pretty fast, but I couldn't sleep. And then, I heard a sound. This time, it was something very close, right outside the tent. I didn't move. I just listened. There was the sound of slow, deliberate breathing, like someone was crouching just inches from the fabric wall. I finally whispered Sam's name, but before I could finish saying it, something pressed against the side of the tent. It was a hand. I saw the outline of fingers drag along the nylon surface just behind Sam's back. I reached out and grabbed his shoulder, shaking him hard. He sat up, whispering, "What? What?" But I didn't even answer. I just pointed. The breathing stopped. We waited. And then came the most terrifying moment. The sound of quiet, soft laughter, maybe 20 feet away. Not angry, not menacing, just weird. Like whoever it was thought this was all funny. We grabbed our flashlights and burst out of the tent. But when we shined them around, no one was there. No footprints, no voices. Just the sound of the rain and wind in the trees. We didn't sleep the rest of that night. By morning, we packed up and got ready to hike back. But that's when we noticed something deeply disturbing. About 100 yards from our tent, we found a small pile of things under a bush. A pair of wet shoes, an old jacket, a broken flashlight, all of them worn out and half buried in the mud. But next to them was something even worse. A phone, cracked, dead, and caked in dirt. We picked it up and saw something scrawled across the back in faded marker. It said, "Don't stay here." We didn't even speak. We just started walking, fast. The whole hike back, we felt like we were being followed. At times, we could hear movement behind us. But every time we stopped, it stopped too. Like whatever it was, knew to stay just out of sight. When we finally got back to the car, we didn't say a word to each other until we hit the highway. I looked over at Sam and said, "You saw the hand, right?" He just nodded. I don't know who, or what, was in those woods that night, but someone had been there before, and they never made it out. This was a Saturday night. It had been raining all day, and by the time night came around, the storm had only gotten worse. The roads were slick, tree branches were falling everywhere, and local news was warning everyone to stay indoors. I had just gotten back from visiting my mom, and I live out in the woods, about 15 minutes away from the nearest neighbor. I'd been meaning to move closer to town, but rent was cheap, and I liked the quiet. Usually. I made it home just before 9 p.m., parked, and had to sprint through the downpour to the front door. I was soaked by the time I got inside. I changed into dry clothes, lit a couple candles just in case the power went out, and settled into the living room to read. I remember thinking how much harder the rain sounded than usual, like it wasn't just hitting the roof, it was pounding against it. The wind had this almost howling quality to it too. At first, I assumed I was just on edge from being alone in a storm like this. About an hour later, I went to make some tea. As I passed the back kitchen window, I noticed something weird. My motion sensor light was on, but there was nothing there. Just my old muddy backyard and a shed. Still, something about it felt wrong. I stood there watching for a second. Then the light suddenly shut off. That's when the power in the house cut out entirely. No flicker, just complete darkness. The timing felt too perfect. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight, then walked back to the living room. I figured it was just storm damage. But when I checked my phone, I had one new text from an unknown number. It said, "Power lines down. Stay inside until further notice." No name, no area code ID. I had never received a text like that before. It didn't even say what company it was from. That made me stop for a second. I started thinking about the motion light again. I told myself it could have been an animal, raccoon or something. But I still walked back to the kitchen and looked out the window. That's when I saw the shed door was wide open. I never leave it open. I hadn't even gone in there for days. A chill hit me. I didn't want to go out there, not in the storm, and definitely not in the dark. I just locked the door and backed away. I went back to the living room and tried to calm down. I was sitting on the couch, watching lightning flash across the trees through the window, when I heard it. A sharp knock, 3 knocks, on the back door. I froze. It wasn't like a neighbor came by. No one walks out here in the rain, not without calling first, not at night. And even if they did, they'd come to the front door. I waited, hoping I imagined it, but then came 3 more knocks, louder this time. I turned off my phone light and crept over toward the kitchen. The knocking had stopped, but the motion light was on again. This time, flickering like something was moving under it. I peeked through the side window. I didn't see anything. But when the next bolt of lightning lit up the yard, I swear I saw someone standing just at the edge of the trees. Not moving, just staring toward the house. I ducked down. My heart was racing. I thought about calling the cops, but I had no signal, not even a bar. The rain was getting heavier, and the wind howled loud enough to rattle the glass. A few minutes passed, and there was nothing. No more knocking, no motion light. I started thinking maybe I was just seeing things in the lightning. Maybe the shed door blew open in the wind. I was about to stand up when I heard a soft, creaking sound. I knew immediately where it was coming from, the hallway near the back entrance. I grabbed the small fireplace poker from beside the mantel and made my way toward the sound. That's when I saw it. The back door was open, wide open. I had locked it earlier. I knew I had. I backed up slowly and turned to run upstairs and lock myself in. But halfway up the staircase, I heard the back door slam shut. And then footsteps. Wet, squishy footsteps moving slowly across the floor. I ran to my bedroom and locked the door. My hands were shaking so badly I dropped the poker. I pushed my dresser in front of the door and grabbed my phone again. Still no signal. I stayed up there for what felt like hours, just listening. The footsteps stopped eventually, but I never heard the door open again. By morning, the storm had passed and the power was still out. I walked downstairs holding a knife from the kitchen. The house was empty. Nothing broken. No signs of a break-in. The shed was shut again. The only thing I noticed was a single pair of muddy, bare footprints on the wood floor, leading from the back door to the center of the living room. And then nowhere else. No trail back to the door. Just a dead stop. I still don't know what was in my house that night, or if it ever really left. If these stories gave you chills, imagine what's waiting in the next one. Don't forget to like the video, share it with someone who loves a good scare, and subscribe to Scary Nightmares for more true horror stories every week. And let me know in the comments, have you ever had something creepy happen during a stormy night?